I am recording. Hello. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. Alright. Sorry about that. Getting all distracted. Alright. Last we left off. I just want to see where I want to. Okay. Okay. Maybe that's a good spot to end off. Ooh. Okay. Actually, I don't need my phone charging anymore. Um. Shoot. Sorry. Okay. So, we were just at. We just ended off on where May and her friends um, encountered the colony of the undead. And yeah. And then they're thinking about teleporting to Hocus Pocus. Yep. All right. Here we go. Chapter 21. A message to Isabella. Commander Berserko floated through the cat door of the Hocus Pocus lighthouse and followed it all the way to the depths. She bursted into the bogey's room, where the bogey was poised with a handwritten invitation to the water demons. All dark spirits must attend. Big announcement at midnight. The bogey jerked, smearing the last exclamation point. He listened nervously to the commander. Through her enraged meowings, the bogey understood that the goblins and zombies had come back empty handed. They had let the girl and her friends get away. Meow, 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 Commander Berserko spat. Though she had heard, though she had searched the edges of the Petrified Pass and the and the Nothing Plateau, she had she hadn't been able to catch a scent anywhere. Where were they? Where were they hiding? And where were they headed next? She coughed a hairball into the bogey's desk for emphasis. She met his eyes so that he knew she meant business. Then she stalked out of the room. A map lay spread on the table of the colony's strategy room. Now, he, how were you planning on getting to South Place? Bertha asked. Oh. Really, though. Um, May glanced at Beatrice, then back at Bertha. I guess we were going to go through the Hocus Pocus lighthouse. Several people in the room let out a groan. Bertha's groan causing those around her to sway. Everyone's Everyone waggled their hands in front of their noses. Bertha shook her head. A dangerous route. Isn't that right, Harley? The man she had spoken to only twitched in the corner, muttering something about dust in the wind. May and Beatrice looked at Bertha questioningly. That's all he's done since he got back, she explained. And that was 20 years ago. He had some kind of trauma down there in the dungeons. Bertha shrugged and shook her head. Been absolutely hopeless ever since. May gulped. There was something else weighing on her, and she needed to bring it up now or never. There's a boy in South Place. Lucius, I want to out of the question, Bertha said, making a decisive chopping gesture with her hand. But we have a mess of undead risking their lives for this, and honey, if you haven't noticed, life is precious in the afterlife. A lot of us have lost spirits we love to the dark spirits. But you gotta be strong. Think of the big picture. We gotta get into the city, park ourselves somewhere, she thought, her upper lip twitching. Hocus Pocus horror huts, most likely. Then we gotta get you into South Place fast. Or get out fast once we get you in. She looked up at Pumpkin, who had started wearing a handkerchief over his mouth and nose to ward off Bertha's breath. Pumpkin whistled and looked off into the distance. After ruminating a bit, Bertha let out a raggedy sigh. The lighthouse is plump dangerous, but it's probably the only option we have. A small group of us will take you in. She stuck her thumb out on the place of the map where the lighthouse appeared and smiled gently, a few bits of garlic plunking out and sticking into her wet lips. We'll shoot. Down we go. That night, Bertha, May, and her friends and a select group of undead worked and reworked their plans for entering Hocus Pocus in South Place. Afterward, Beatrice insisted on sorry. Um, where was I? Afterward, Beatrice insisted on poring over the many newspapers, new books, and magazines in the library. She and May read anything they could find on the city and its residents, just in case Bee's mother might be among them. You never know, Bee said. Every town has an opportunity. No, every town is an opportunity. A bottle of glowing ink perched on top of her papers. Bee carefully used her feather pen to copy any notes that seemed like they might be helpful. May sat beside her, trying to read up too, but fading fast. She rested her chin on her crossed arms and tried to stay awake. Somebody curled into her lap and occasionally looking at her curiously, wondering when they were going to bed. He didn't dare venture away. Everywhere he walked, some eager colony member wanted to squeeze him tight or scratch his chin, or worse, talk to him in a goofy, high-pitched voice that humans sometimes do with animals, as if they were complete dummies. Here's the name Longfellow. Here's the name Longfellow, May said, slamming her finger on a roster for a bingo event at the Phantom Nuns Parish, which had been held to raise money for clothes for people who died while skinny dipping. What a great cause. Beatrice leaned forward, breathlessly. May read on, whispering, whipping her finger along the page. Scorecards were handed out by Captain J.T. Morgan and Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Bee sighed and went back to her stack of papers. Uh, okay. Um, about, what was I? About an hour later, she folded her hands on top of the stack and looked at May solemnly. I can't find any more. I'm tired. Her bottom lip trembled just slightly. Bee pulled her legs up. Bee pulled her legs up under her skirt, wrapping her thin, pale arms around them. That's okay, May said. We can get up early and read more before we leave. Beatrice's eyelashes fluttered gently as she looked at May. You were right. Back in the past. I can't keep going like this. She looked down at where her feet were hidden under her dress. I'm so tired. My toenails hurt. May laughed, but it was a wheezy kind of laugh. All these years, and I've hardly thought about anything else. Maybe I just need to let it go. Oh no, Bee! May reached out for her friend's cool hand. I don't mean I want to forget her. Beatrice gave May a quivering smile. I just mean that maybe some things need to be meant to be. Do you know what I mean? May nodded. It made perfect sense. But Beatrice warbled on the verge of tears. Do you think I can stop missing her? Do you think I can stop missing her, May? Do you think the spirits can change after that? After all? Oh, Bee. May's own eyes filled with tears, and she wrapped her arms around Bee, then pulled back and smiled at her. I don't think you need to change a thing. Beatrice smiled softly, let out a long sigh, then unfolded herself from her chair and floated out the door. May stared after her. Sheila. She longed to float down the hallway and into bed too. But she turned back to Bee's stack of papers. If Bee gave up, he would look for her mom. May pinched her cheeks to wake herself up and dug into the stack. A long while later, as May drooped over Hocus Pocus Focus magazine, her heavy eyelids just about to collide with her lower lashes, she spotted a paragraph buried in the classified section. Typhoid Mary's Chateau for Sentimental Sicklies. 88 Magnolia Lane, Hocus Pocus, TEA. One of the several homes owned by Typhoid Mary across the Ever After, we have catered to sickly spirits since 1920. Unless you lost them to gangrene or some other mishap, you love putting your feet up at this home away from life. Convenient to haunting locations, affordable after living. Pick up your Skolophone and call now, or sell a telegram to the address above to reserve an apartment. At the very least, it was worth a try. She tucked the paper under her arm and snuck around to the telebooth down the hall. The telebooth looked a lot like the teleporter beside it, but while the teleporter was for transporting souls, the telebooth the telebooth had an envelope symbol engraved on its glass door to indicate that it was just for mental mail. May slid the door open and stepped inside the telebooth. A light appeared overhead, and she looked up to see recipient question mark spelled out in bright white letters. May swallowed, read the address in the ad again, closed her eyes, and concentrated. To whom it may concern, Typhoid Mary's Chateau for Sentimental Sicklies, 88 Magnolia Lane, Hocus Pocus. She looked up again. The shining envelope appeared with the address across the front. Message? Question mark. The booth asked next. May squeezed her eyes shut and thought again. We're looking for a spectre by the name of Isabella Heathcliff Longfellow. She looked up to see that her thoughts were being recorded on a large, white, glowing sheet of paper. She reached out to touch it, curious, but her fingers passed right through it. She tried not to think about words like underwear and looked up again. The message so far read, We're looking for a spectre by the name of Isabella Heathcliff Longfellow. Stop. Stop. Underwear. Stop. Darn, May muttered. She didn't know how to erase it, so she just closed her eyes and tried to go on. If she is there, please have her contact Maybird and Beatrice Longfellow at... She remembered something Bertha had mentioned earlier. At the Horror Huts Hotel in Hocus Pocus. She looked up. The end? Colorful lights surrounded her head as the paper folded itself and disappeared into the opening of the translucent envelope, addressed to the chateau on one side, and now labeled with the other. Colorful lights surrounded her head as the paper folded itself and disappeared into the opening of the translucent envelope addressed to the chateau with one side, and now labeled on the other with SWAC, sealed with a kiss. It rose out of the hole at the top of the booth and zipped up the chute. May watched in awe, but a worry crept at the edge of her mind, like a mosquito whispering to her that she had made some kind of a mistake she didn't comprehend. She considered going back to the library to read some more, but she was afraid she couldn't keep her eyes open another minute. Warily, she floated down the hall to bed. A few minutes later, somebody curled up beside Pumpkin. Beside Pumpkin was the only one who saw the petals on Beatrice's necklace open, just slightly. Late that night, a mummy happened to be sitting on the porch of Typhoid Mary's chateau for sentimental sicklies, resting his feet and drinking a slurpy soda, when a telegram arrived. The mummy watched the telegram float gently overhead, then land on the welcome mat with a flutter. Nosy, as most mummies are, even though their noses have long since fallen off. He picked it up and opened it. When he got to the words Maybird, he nearly choked on his soda. By that time, despite the bogey's efforts to the contrary, May's reputation had preceded her, if not to the halls of Beau Clevel's fortress in the northeast, at least throughout the halls of South Place. Taking the telegram with him, the mummy ambled off toward the lighthouse at top speed in search of the bogey. And that is the end of chapter 21. Ooh boy. Oh man, what's gonna happen? Oh boy. Shit's gonna go down. Alright, anyway. Chapter 22. She's gonna get mummified. Nice. Alright, chapter 22. Who's afraid of Hocus Pocus? The colony of the undead was in a frenzy. Maps were dragged out of hidden crevices while a group of people locked themselves up in a strategy room and started banging around inside. Lawless Lexi, who seemed to be Bertha's right-hand woman, led everyone through a crash course of lock-picking, dark spirit detection, how to put a goal in a headlock, and other handy tricks for the journey. The entire group of undead jogged laps every morning without exception. They ran through an obstacle course of booby traps that spanned the entire area of their underground hiding place every afternoon, and they invited May and her friends to train with them. Fabio often took the lead in these circuits, turning it into a race that nobody was trying to win. Every time he arrived back at the starting line, he twirled his mustache casually and tried not to show how hard he had tried. Summer Kitty insisted on joining in on the martial arts lessons, though several of the undead snickered. Kitty, why don't you go curl up somewhere and relax? Bea asked more than once. But Kitty merely looked at her coolly and executed his four-legged moves, balancing as best he could. Pumpkin, trying to be more like Somber Kitty, often joined too. They were all given several bundles of notes on Hocus Pocus and South Place to study, curled tightly inside rubber bands. Pumpkin, who'd never used a rubber band before, shot them at every target he could think of, including Fabio, who frowned at him irritably. Everywhere May went, someone patted her on the back, or smiled at her wildly, or even bowed with respect. Bertha had told everyone that she was going on secret business, but everyone assumed the business was to save them all, as the Book of the Dead had predicted. When May heard whispers about this, she ducked her head in shame. She couldn't get up the courage to deny their beliefs, so she said nothing. On the day of May's departure, the undead piled in for warm hugs, and May accepted them gratefully. No time to get sentimental, people. Come on, Bertha said. Now, nobody draw attention to themselves. Stay spread out on the stubway. We'll all have our shrouds on, but we don't want a whole gaggle of live ones making themselves conspicuous. I'll take May and her friends. We'll all meet up at the Horror Huts Hotel. Remember, should something go wrong, we take the sewers out of town. She was waving the group into the teleporter booth. One after another, 5 select undead, adorned with death shrouds, stepped in, plunked a teletoken into the slot, and disappeared. May's pulse raced. She looked at her friends, who were putting on brave faces, except for Pumpkin, who was trembling from big head to toe. Amelia pushed her flight goggles up to her head and took May's hand. I'm so proud of you. We know you can do it. She gave May a wink. He likes warm hugs. Everyone likes warm hugs. May felt a lump rise in her throat. She tucked Kitty safely underneath her shroud and plucked her token into the slot. And that is the end of chapter 22. And that one was a short chapter. This one is a longer chapter. All right, chapter 23. A Gamblin' Town, a Ramblin' Town. Hocus Pocus Transit Authority. Here we are. Everybody out. They all clambered out of the teleporter booth and stood in a knot at the front of the depot. Bertha waved everyone forward as they drifted through the crumbling stone doorway. They followed the stairs down to a platform where several other spirits were waiting, looking at their watches, rifling through their briefcases, and then there was a sick, lopsided rumble from the dark tunnel to the right, and slowly, the subway emerged along the tracks. Hold on, I just need to get some lip balm for my lip ooze. All right. There we go. It was a hulking crooked thing. Its windows cracked and its metal body rusted and full of holes. It lurched toward the waiting. It lurched toward the. It lurched toward the waiting passengers forlornly, like a lonely dog. The subway didn't so much come to a halt in front of them, as simply expire in an exhausted sort of way. Pumpkin clutched the back of May's papoose, causing Summer Kitty, nestled inside, to let out a quiet groan. The travelers were jostled to and fro as they drifted into the train and spread out along the aisles. Pardon me, excuse me, so sorry, Bee said. Finally, they all settled in and the doors creaked closed. A voice came over a crackling loudspeaker above the handles. Next stop, Wormhole. At Wormhole, a tall specter boarded and squeezed up next to May. He had clearly died in a fire, as tiny flames ran up and down his clothes. May couldn't help but stare at him out of the corner of her eye. Mind if I smoke? He asked. May was about to answer politely when the train made a hard turn to the right. All the passengers were flung against the left wall. May fell into Bertha. Don't worry, just the wormhole. The train spiraled around and around, and then it emerged into the light of dusk, and they were back outside, moving slowly across the sand. What's that? Beatrice asked, pointing out the window to a large, glowing blob in the distance. Hold on. Okay, maybe that should fix it. Okay. I was at. What's that? Beatrice asked, pointing out the window to a large, glowing blob in the distance, underneath the darkened sky. Hocus Pocus. Bee took hold of May's hand, her delicate fingers digging in. Otherwise, she was the picture of calm. As they all stared out the windows intently, the city and its citizens began to take shape ahead of them. Hocus Pocus was completely dead. That is to say, it was as lively as a city as one could imagine in Ever After. Spirits crowded the streets. Ghosts promenaded across dilapidated overpasses. They crisscrossed, drifted, disappeared into this and that gambling hall or glowing green club with peppy organ music blaring out through its windows. Occasional fights tumbled out of the double doors of saloons onto the streets as hearses and horseless carriages jostled by. One spirit was jostled onto the tracks and yelled, "Ouch!" as the subway ran him over. A glowing sign hung over the tracks. burning brightly and sending lights disappearing swirling, uh, into the dark, swirling stardust clouds above. A gambling town, a rambling town. Welcome to Hocus Pocus. Beyond the crooked, beyond the crooked, jam-packed roofs loomed the lighthouse. It was a dark, black spire, fearsome to behold, every inch of it adorned with stone faces, with gaping, fang-filled mouths. At the tip of its enormous black light at its tip, an enormous black light spun in circles, sweeping the sky with its heavy black shadow. A gull crossing the street bumped into their train, grunted, and then rushed to catch up with a gang of gulls up ahead. May bowed her head, tightening the hood of her shroud. Hey, mister, room for one more? One gaunt, dark-suited spirit asked, trying to drift into one of the windows. The car attendant threw him out. Go buy a ticket, you deadbeat! The stepway moved even slower now, on account of all the cars that pulled across the tracks ahead of it. Bertha muttered under her breath something about hocus pocus drivers. May, Beatrice, Fabio, and Somber Kitty had their faces pinned against the glass, mesmerized. More glowing signs hung off the buildings at crooked, decrepit angles, advertising various attractions. Goals, goals, goals! Live! Poltergeists on ice. One night only. See the dreaded Silky's magic show. You'll be amazed. Outstanding. Outstanding. Outstanded. Possibly asphyxiated. May? Beatrice waved to catch May's attention, then motioned to the window in front of her, where May's breath had collected in the fog of the glass. Let me say that again. Beatrice waved. May? Beatrice waved to catch May's attention, then motioned to the window in front of her, where May's breath had collected in a fog on the glass. Bea gestured that she should rub it off. Oh, May furiously signed it off with her fist. Ah! She fell backward. A gaunt lady in a long dress was looking at her through the glass and made a slicing motion across her throat. Bertha grabbed her up tight, looking around nervously. Silkies, she whispered. Just cool your muffins. She casually waved her dagger at the woman. Who only smiled wickedly and drifted away. The stepway took a hard turn left onto a new street off the main drag, slightly less crowded, and May and Bea gasped. On their right stretched the oily black waters of the Dead Sea. Several dark spirits were down on the beach, starbathing and socializing. Some pushed vending carts from one beach blanket to the next, peddling putrid pops and slurpy sodas. On the rise to the left, a black-clad witch appeared out of the window. Hold on. On a rise to the left, a black-clad witch peered out of a window painted with Fortune's Earth-compatible hexes, just in time for Halloween. Sorry, I was just adjusting myself a little bit. Oh! Can we please get a hex? What is a hex? What about a putrid pop? Pumpkin was practically bouncing up and down. Here we are, Bertha said, turning a sharp-eyed look at Pumpkin, causing him to immediately shut his mouth tight. The train wheezed to a stop at the East Hocus Pocus station. The travelers drifted out of the car. They gathered for a moment on the platform and looked at one another. Bertha drifted under a billboard that read, if you dwelled at Coffin View condos, you'd be home by now. No tail dragging, you hear? Let's get a move on. Oh, I think my brother's home. I think so. Nice. He was like at the mall since like probably 4. And he was waiting for this new Dragon Ball game to come out. Such dedication. I don't know how he does it. He's probably gonna go install it right now. Alright, anyway. Back to the story. Alright. And with that, they followed her down an alley to a building shaped like a skull with a gaping mouth. As soon as they'd secured rooms at the hotel, May went to the front desk to inquire after the telegram she'd hoped to receive from Typhoid Mary's, but there was nothing. Another dead end, she guessed. Upstairs, she watched Beatrice sadly. Bea was floating about the room, opening the curtains to let in the starlight and arranging the furniture to be a bit more homey. If possible, she seemed more melancholy than ever, though she wore a brave face. If everything went as May hoped tomorrow, she wouldn't be around to see if Bea found her mother or not. Wait, let me say that right. I don't think I said that right. If everything went as May hoped tomorrow, she wouldn't be around to see if Bea found her mother or not. Hey, Bea, do you want to take a walk with me? May asked. Maybe they could share a Slurpee soda or take in a poltergeist show. Beatrice's eyes lit up. Do you think we could? They both looked at Bertha, who was already busy sharpening a silver-tipped spear. I wish you wouldn't, Bertha said, seeming flustered. It's a rough town. She eyed the girl's look of excitement, seeming to give just a bit of, well? She leaned on one hip and gazed around the room. Oh, I was a tadpole once, and as long as as long as it's just you two, you can't take the cat, of course. Summerkitty let out a discouraged meow from where he had curled up on the bed. Bertha cast a look at Fabio. He was staring at the parking lot and jotting down a haiku. Then a pumpkin who had resurrected the handkerchief and put it back over his nose. And I'm worried about these two. Bertha shook her head. Just don't talk to strangers, and hurry back, you hear? Okay, May said, nodding. She pulled Bea out into the hallway. Strange things afoot today, girls, the innkeeper said from behind his desk as they drifted through the foyer. Be careful out there. The dark spirits are restless. They wound their way through the city streets, passing several large groups of ghouls and one smattering of goblins. Each time they went stiff and quiet. But tried their best to act naturally. Neither the goblins nor the ghouls seemed to take much notice of them. Without having planned it, May found herself looking down each new street for Typhoid Mary's. She'd considered mentioning it to Bea, but thought better of it. And then there it was, Magnolia Lane. May casually steered Beatrice to the right. The two girls drifted down the quiet cobblestone street. About halfway down to the left, they came to it. The sign outside said, Typhoid Mary's Chateau for Sentimental Sicklies, serving the typhoid community since 1920. The building itself lay behind a stone archway with a broad stone porch. Beatrice took May's hand. May, look, Beatrice said. They drifted up to the stairs onto the porch. A welcome mat at their feet announced, Float on in. Do you think we should go in? Bee asked. We might as well, May said innocently. Hold on just 1 second. No, that was not Josh. It's probably my grandma. So I don't think he's back just yet. Hopefully he'll come back soon. He said he was gonna get his game at like 9:01 or something like that. Anyway. We might as well, May said innocently. Voices drifted down the corridor from a room at the far end of a long marble hallway, just inside the front door. Oh, maybe I'll just wait outside, Bee said. I can't take another disappointment. Maybe you should go on. You should go without me, and you can just let me know. Come on, Bee. May held her friend's hand tighter as they drifted down the hall and up to the threshold. The room was full of spirits in all types of old-fashioned clothes, from rags to beaded cocktail tresses with bits of lace at the throat. On the table was a big coffin-shaped cake with yellow writing. Oh, I guess he is back. Yeah, he is back. Alright, back to the story. The room was full of spirits in all types of old fashioned clothes, from rags to beaded cocktail dresses with bits of lace at the throat. On a table was a big coffin shaped cake with yellow writing. Their loss, our gain. Happy Death Day, Dory. Dorothy? Dorothy? Dorothy. Oh my god. Dorothy. How did I get Dorothy? Okay, back to the story. Um, on the table was a big coffin-shaped cake with yellow writing. Their loss, our gain. Happy Death Day, Dorothy. A woman, presumably Dorothy, was just blowing out her candles. Several of those spirits around. Hold up, I just need to readjust myself again because I feel like doing it. Okay. A woman, presumably Dorothy, was just blowing out her candles. Several of those spirits around her shook her hand and wished her well. After a few more minutes, May squeaked out an, "Excuse me?" Dorothy drifted their way. She wore a long lavender dress, and her corn colored hair was done up in a loose, old fashioned bun. "Hello there. May we help you?" She looked back and forth between them and her son. She looked back and forth between them with their sunken in eyes. "Yes," May cleared her throat. "We're looking for Mrs. May looked at Beatrice to finish for her. "Mrs. Isabella Heathcliff Longfellow," um, Beatrice practically whispered, and then looked back at May. "And we were hoping," May continued, "that you might know her?" Dorothy nodded. "I do." May felt a shudder run down Bee's hand. She felt herself as she herself felt as if she'd just done over a dip. Uh, uh, she felt just as she felt herself. Uh, she herself felt as if she'd just gone over the dip of a roller coaster. "But she isn't here," Dorothy said, her hand playing with the lace collar of her throat. "What a shame. She just left this morning for the city of Ether." But, May sputtered. We sent a telegram." Bee shot her a wide-eyed look of surprise. "I'm sorry." "I'm sorry," Dorothy said, sounding slightly offended. "We didn't receive any telegram. She goes away all the time." Dorothy sniffed, then added with gravity, "She'll be gone about a month or so, looking for her daughter." "But this is her daughter," May shouted, waving Bee's hand at them. Dorothy's dark eyes blinked, incredulous. "Oh, oh?" she gurgled. Oh my dear, truly?" She wrenched Bee's hand from May's and clutched it tighter, staring at her intently. "Why, yes, you are. You look just like her." Bee let herself Bee let herself be yanked all around like a rag doll. Her eyes had gone glassy. "She talks about you all the time. She's been looking for you for ages. Oh, I'll dash off a telegram right to her right away. She's riding the Boney Express. I know exactly which carriage." Several spirits had congregated in the room now, hearing that Isabella's daughter had arrived. Many were wiping away their tears, while others were exclaiming how remarkable it was. Still, others murmured to Beatrice that her mother was a wonderful lady, but Bee appeared to be in shock. She just stood there. "You come back here bright and early in the morning and see if we haven't heard back from her. Oh, my dear." In her frenzy, several strands of corn-hued hair had worked themselves loose from Dorothy's bun and swung around her face, causing her to swat them away. May looked at Beatrice for a response, but nothing. "Well, thank you," May said, tightly, backing away, her heart pounding. "We'll be back in the morning. First thing tomorrow," Dorothy practically shouted. May floated Beatrice back down the corridor and outside to the front steps, where she sat her down. "Bee?" She remembered something she had seen on TV about needing to pat people on the cheeks when they were unconscious. She tried this with May. It failed to work for several minutes, but eventually, whether it was because of the patting or not, Bee finally turned to look at May, her eyelids fluttering wildly like the tiny legs of a centipede bristling. Her eyes traveled over May's face in wonder. Tomorrow, she said, and then she fainted dead away. That night, May and Pumpkin sat awake by the window, watching as the inhabitants of Hocus Pocus drifted off to their graves for haunting time. May? Pumpkin asked. May looked at him. He seemed to have been thinking of something for a long time. I don't know if they'll let me come back anymore. To haunt your house? Now that I've skipped out on haunting duties for so long. Pumpkin stared out the window, pensive. Things in South Place will be dangerous, he finally continued. If you make it home tomorrow, maybe we won't have a chance to say goodbye. Pumpkin's bottom lip trembled. He smoothed his tufts of hair nervously. I just wanted you to know I've had the best time ever. May felt too sad to speak, but she managed to choke out. And the worst. They looked at each other and laughed. Having you as a friend makes me glad I was never born, Pumpkin joked, and they laughed again. And then a tear dribbled from Pumpkin's eye, and May caught it with her finger. You won't forget me, will you? He muttered, sucking in his bottom lip. Oh, Pumpkin. May wrapped her arms around him and hugged him tight. She pulled back and looked into his eyes. How could there be a life without Pumpkin? Even all the times growing up, she hadn't known he was there. She not realized she'd felt him near her, and it made her feel safe. How could I forget my first friend? He was the first friend life had handed her, but also the first friend she had ever made herself. He had saved her from the water demon, tackled the bogey, bargained with poltergeists, sung goblins to sleep. With a start, May realized something else. And you're my hero, she blurted out. Pumpkin stiffened. He blushed. He looked back over his shoulder, then at May. Why are you saying that too? Of course I will. To her forgetting her? Damn. Pumpkin stiffened. He blushed. He looked back over his shoulder, then at May. Does that mean you love me a little bit more than... Pumpkin nodded his head toward Kitty, who lay on the bed, watching them drowsily. May stared at him, not sure what to say. He waved his hands in the air and shook his head. Don't answer that. You love us the same, right? The same. And different, May replied finally, and strung her warm fingers through Pumpkin's cold ones. A gull passed by outside the windows, his slimy arms twitching. He filled both May and Pumpkin with the dread they had almost forgotten for a few minutes. It's getting so dangerous here in the ever after, Pumpkin said, watching the gull until he slimed out of the corner. Pumpkin said, watching the gull until he slimed around a corner. He squeezed May's hand tighter. They sat for a long time in silence. And then Pumpkin said something that made May wince. I hope you never come back. And that is the end of chapter 23. No, never. No, I love Summer Kitty way more. Dang. Alright. Oh boy. Oh boy. Such a touching moment. God damn, I love this book. I love Pumpkin the most. Goddamn. I really do. Okay. Um. Oh shit, we're almost done with part two. Okay. Alright. Back to reading. Oh, fuck. I know, right? Oh, man. This book has 260. Right now I'm at 193. So we're getting really goddamn close. Okay. Alright. Chapter 24. A Long Lost Mother. Many light years away, Ellen Bird stood at the edge of a great tangle of plants. In her hand she carried a flashlight. In her pocket was a brown bag packed with sandwiches and nuts. On her feet she wore thick rubber boots over blue jeans. As Ellen Bird set foot in the first prickly bush, she was almost sure she sensed the dimmest light flicker, somewhere deep and far ahead. She was almost sure, but Ellen Bird had never believed in things she couldn't see. She tromped into the briars. Crash! May was dreaming about her mother's brown curls when the silence of room 206 was shattered. Everyone tumbled out of their beds, staring at one another in a daze. Pumpkin smoothed his tuft. Fabio jumped to action. Crash! Except for Pumpkin, who zipped under the bed. The inhabitants of room 206 started to the window, yanking open the curtains and peering outside. Down on the street, the city was in an uproar. Ghouls were chasing spirits with nets. Goblins were rattling chains as they zipped after the specter and that ghost, slapping shackles around their legs and wrists, dragging them away. What's happening? Beatrice asked. They all turned to Bertha, who had already hurried to the door, her silver dagger in her hand, to peer through the eye hole. She took a good look in the hall, then zipped back to the window. This is bad. Outside, specters zipped out through the front door of the motel toward their carriages, trying to escape. Some were captured by zombies. Others managed to steer their carriages onto the street, only to be stopped just outside the parking lot. Everville, or what had once been Everville, leaped into May's mind. Are the dark spirits taking over? She asked. Bertha nodded heavily, as if she couldn't get up the energy to nod twice. Her mouth twitched, and her gray eyes took in the scene as sharply as an eagle. Then, when they landed on some unknown sight, she gasped and shut the curtains tight. It couldn't be. She peeked again and turned. It is. Bertha's eyes took on a fiery, fearful glint. She faced the others. It's Commander Berserko. Commander who? May asked. For the first time, Bertha appeared to be at a loss. She peered about the room wildly. Everyone, enter the beds! She snapped. The occupants instantly did what they were told, grabbing their belongings and shimmying up against Pumpkin. If we open the door, Lawless Lexi whispered. They think we fled, so everyone, be still. She opened the door to their room, then quickly darted under the bed with the others. As long as Berserko doesn't sniff us out, we'll be okay. Everyone cast glances at Bertha, but she didn't seem to notice. They waited with bated breath, some more bated than others, as they listened to the sound of gulls pouring into the building. Flip, flip, flip. Pumpkin, what is it you are doing? Fabio asked. Pumpkin was flipping through B's Gaulish to English dictionary. I want to know what they're saying. I want to know if they're saying they're going to eat us. Everyone went still and listened. Heckle blah blah blah. Gurgle blah. Let's hope they have a souvenir stationery, Pumpkin translated in a whisper. Shh, everyone hissed. Girly burgle. And ice machines, he translated, sticking his finger in his mouth fretfully. Shh. The gulls could be heard getting closer down the hall, followed by the sound of doors being opened. Then the door of their room creaked, and two pairs of slimy gull feet appeared in front of the bed, hurrying away just as quickly. Meow, Somber Kitty whispered. Then May put her hand over his mouth. Meow! This time, the meow had come from somewhere outside. Somber Kitty and May looked at each other in the dark. It was hours before the city of Hocus Pocus got quiet. The gangs under the bed waited another hour after the gulls had left before crawling out to peep, very carefully, through the blinds. They took in the scene below with dawning despair. The city had been ransacked. Ghouls and goblins amped through the streets, alongside groups of spirits in chains. More spirits were being added by the minute, caught in doorways and alleyways. Below, a ghoul staked a sign into the ground from an armful of signs he was carrying. Pardon our dust. Coming soon. Clevelville number 147. Coming attractions. Crawmart, Charbucks, Skullbuster Video. Brought to you by your friendly ruler, Bo Clevel. Remember, he is watching you at all times. My mother, Beatrice said. What if she comes back? Fabio scooted next to her and patted her head stiffly. No can do. Bertha turned to one of the chests of drawers and began retrieving her things, stowed inside. We've got to head back to the colony. She looked at May solemnly. There's no way you can get into South Place now. But, no buts. We'll leave now. We'll use the sewers. It's confusing down there, but I know the way. As Bertha packed, May noticed the watch she wore on her wrist. Under the glass face was a tiny skeleton. The skeleton had one arm, and one stumpy arm that was missing a hand. The stumpy arm pointed to the number 7. The long arm pointed to the number 2. It was 7:02. It was 7:02 in the morning. May thought of Typhoid Marys. They were supposed to be on their way there right now. Bertha stopped her packing for a moment and turned to look at them. Did anyone know you were coming? May shook her head. Bertha shook her head in response, bewildered. It's as if they already knew. It's as if they knew you were. May's belly suddenly let out a painful glurb. Her telegram. Her face and ears went like they had caught fire. My mother, Beatrice interjected. We can't wait for you. Bertha barked. Too dangerous, and you'll never find your way out of the city on your own. Beatrice trembled. She looked as if she might fall apart, cascade down into the ground like a waterfall, or cease to exist altogether. But what if they come back and they catch her? Bertha cast her a pained, conflicted look. She peered out. She peered at her watch, then out through the window and onto the street. She looked at May, who had already risen and was standing in the doorway, determined. Bertha let out a husky groan. If you two go, you go on your own. We can't go with you. Beatrice nodded and floated to the doorway, reaching out to clutch May's elbow. You got an hour. I'll gather the rest of my crew in the other hotel rooms and we'll take the sewers at 8. Not a minute after. Bertha. Sorry. Let me adjust myself again. Um, um, Bertha adjusted her death shroud and unhooked her watch and held it out toward May. Here, take this. Be sure you get it. You get back. Trust me, this is not a place you want to be stranded without someone who knows the way out. Minutes later, May and Beatrice burst through the doors of Typhoid Mary's, looking up at the hall wildly. It had been a death-defying trip through the streets of Hocus Pocus. Bea had almost walked right into a zombie when May pulled her back, and they ducked into a series of alleys, losing the zombies near the zombies near an arcade. Then a troop of ghouls had filled both sides of their path, and they had to duck under a sewer grate. Now Beatrice tugged at her dress as they hurried down to the hallway. The watch Bertha had given May read 7:22. Let's split up. I'll meet you back here, May said, zipping off to one side of the building while Bea zipped off to the other. When they met again, it was 7:28. It's empty, May said, stricken. I know. Bea's lips were quivering. She looked completely dejected. There was no Dorothy, no telegram from Isabella, no anything. They drifted back out to the front stairs. From here, they had a view down Magnolia Lane. Beyond it, the city gave way to a dusty road that led to a wide prairie, strewn with trash heaps and the occasional spooky shanty. Seeing Bea's stricken face caused an earthquake in May's heart. She looked at the watch again. We can wait here a little while to see if a telegram comes, she offered. Bea nodded numbly and sat. They stared off into the prairie. Every once in a while, a cloud of vapor rising from one of the trash heaps drifted across the landscape. The skeleton watch pointed to 7:46. May began to fidget. How much time? Bea whispered. 14 minutes. If they went at their absolute fastest and didn't run into problems, May imagined it would take them at least 8 minutes to get back to the horror huts. It'll come, Beatrice said, her eyes trained on the horizon. She'll write and tell me where to meet her. I know you're right, May said, but she wasn't sure. In fact, she was beginning to believe the opposite was true. I know it doesn't make sense, Bea said, her voice creaky. But I just feel it. I feel we need to stay here. A minute passed as May began to tug Bee upward. Her eyes traveled to Bee's neck. Bee, look! The flowers on Bee's necklace were in full bloom. They stared at it a moment. What do you think it means? Bee whispered. May tugged her hand. I don't know, but we have to go. And then a movement on the prayer caught their eye, and they turned to look. It resembled a cloud of vapor, but this one seemed to be moving purposely toward them. It disappeared behind a pile of trash for an instant, then reappeared around the nearest side. Bee stood stock still. She didn't seem to be able to move. The figure became more defined by the second. It sorted itself into a shape before their eyes. That's her suitcase, Bee said. That's her dress. May squinted, but she could hardly make out a thing. Still, the figure seemed to spot them because it came to a full stop, and then a sound drew the figure's attention to the left. A troop of gulls had wandered into the prairie on the west end. They, too, had spotted the lady with the suitcase and were starting to make their way toward her. First, floating slowly, unsure, and then picking up speed. Bee followed the woman's gaze. Time seemed to freeze, and then Bee found her voice. Mama, run! The gulls began to zip now, but Bee's mother didn't run. She started to sway. May, do something! May didn't think. She only acted. She grabbed her boy from her back and zipped forward. And that is the end of chapter 24. Ooh, what's gonna happen? I don't know. Alright. Chapter 25. Your mom's gone. I ain't going. Okay. Last chapter before the end of part 2, you guys. Ooh. Okay. Oh, fuck, dude. Oh, my God. Oh, okay. I think I'm just going to read till 10:30, but we'll see how that goes. All right. Chapter 25. Going Down. Without a word, the lady dropped her suitcase and backed away, tripping over the hem of her dress. Reaching her a moment before the gulls, May pulled an arrow taut along her bow and aimed at the foremost gull. Her arm shook, but the line of gulls skidded to a halt, colliding into each other and jabbering. Bee caught up just behind May. Mama! She cried, throwing her arms around the woman. May stole a glance over her shoulder, almost unable to believe her eyes, her fingers trembling on the string. Beatrice! Isabella whispered. The gull started to drift forward. Biting her lip hard, May let an arrow fly. This time it zipped into the air, covering about half the distance to her target, and then froze and fell. The gulls watched it with their mouths open. When it was clear the air would not magically rise again from the ground. They let out a loud howl. They let out loud howls of laughter. May looked back at mother and daughter, hanging on to each other for dear life. She slung her bow over her back and backing up. Let's go! With the gulls clambering after them, they zipped like lightning into the streets of Hocus Pocus, not bothering to duck or hide when a dark spirit crossed their path. Most spirits were so shocked to see them moving so boldly that they stopped and stared before they gave chase. Others tried to grab them, swiping at them. One managed to get a hold of Beatrice's sash, and it came off in ribbons. Spirits closed in on all sides of them until a horde was on their tail down the main boulevard. We've got to lose them! May shouted over her shoulder and zipped into a side street, then another and another, counting on Bee and Isabella to keep up. When she looked over her shoulder and saw that they were, at least temporarily, alone, she veered in the direction of the horror huts, praying she'd still be able to find the group. Then suddenly, there they were, at the gaping, smiling, and suddenly, there they were, at the gaping, smiling skull face that marked the back entrance. Bertha and the others, Fabio, Pumpkin, and Somber Kitty included, were just coming down the hall. Bertha looked angry, relieved, and intent all at once. Somber Kitty leaped up at May, dangling on her shroud before she swooped him into his arms. He gave her an earful of reproachful meows. Righty, Bertha said. Let's go. The sewer that led out of the city had an opening 4 blocks away, and the group made their way quickly. Beatrice and Isabella clinging to each other all the while, as if one or the other might vanish at any moment. May followed just behind Bertha, occasionally looking behind her and casting a triumphant glance at the two. They weren't out of trouble yet, but close. As they ducked down alleyways, they could hear large groups of people, not people. As they ducked down alleyways, they could hear large groups of spirits combing the streets, roaring and snarling, in an uproar again over the 3 specters who'd streaked the boulevard so boldly. What do you guys do? Bertha growled. Ring the dinner bell? Then she thrust his finger forward, indicating an alley across the way and a tiny metal sewer grate protruding from the road. But May's attention had been drawn to something else, poking above the building at the end of the alley. Once the coast was clear, the group darted across the street, May following along blindly, her eyes pinned to the thing above the rooftops. Everybody in, Bertha said, grunting with the weight of the sewer grate as she lifted it and ushering her people, and then Pumpkin, Fabio, Bee, and Isabella, down into the sewer. But May had drifted past them, farther down the alley, to its very edge. Here, the tight alleys of the city opened up to the beach, and then there, in the middle of the sand, perched on the very edge of the sea, and mounted on a pile of black rocks, was a lighthouse. Above the door was an ornate carved stone banner, which could only be read when the light shone through it. What it said sent chills down into May's heart. Abandon hope, all ye who enter here. May, let's go! May swiveled. Bertha was standing halfway out of the sewer, waving her hand with her dagger. Pumpkin had poked his head out, too, and was staring at May, nibbling on a finger. He looked at her hopefully. May looked down at Kitty, snuggled tightly in her arms. She looked at Bertha, whose mouth suddenly settled into a sad, grim line, as if she understood. And then she looked at Pumpkin, her heart pounding painfully. She thought of her mother. She thought of how much safer her friends would be without trying to help her. And then she set her jaw. May turned and floated away. May! Pumpkin howled behind her, so loudly that his voice sounded hoarse. But May didn't look back. Not until the sound of his cries became muted and echoey. As she When she did return, Bertha and the others were gone, and the sewer grate was back where it belonged. May swallowed. She hugged Kitty tight, and then she turned forward again, checked the beach, and zipped toward the lighthouse. And that is the end of chapter 25, and the end of part 2. As we begin part 3. Part 3 is Under the Sea. Oh fuck, dude, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen, dude? Oh fuck, dude. Ugh. She's fucking dead. And then the rest of the story is just her trying to save the ever after while she's dead. Spoiler alert. Just kidding. Perf. Sorry, I just need to get something. Ah, fuck, dude. Okay. Alright. I'm like trying to see where I can leave off. Because goddamn, you're gonna want to know a lot fucking more. Like, goddamn. Okay, okay. So, chapter 26. The Dark Spirit Capital of the Universe. Commander Berserker roamed the empty streets of Hocus Pocus, her ear tilted to the slightest sound, her nose pointed to the cobblestones, sniffing. The cat and his girl had been here. She was sure of it. And so it boggled her mind that she couldn't catch their scent. Ghouls and goblins ran the streets with the last of their prisoners. Commander Berserker watched them indifferently, cleaning her paws, staring up at the nearby buildings darkly. Where were they? It was almost time for the festivities to start, which meant her time above was up. Hold on, I need to. Hearing a sound, she turned but saw nothing, only the lighthouse standing behind her, surrounded by empty beach. She sniffed the air one last time. Then she let out a reluctant meow and jumped into the waters of the Dead Sea, returning to the realm below. Glurb, glurb, glurb. As May descended the spiral stairs, pushing even farther downward, her death shroud cast a faint glow around her as if she were a lightning black falling from the sky. Around her, the sea gurgled and glubbed and bubbled. It seemed to call to her, enticing her down, down, down. Pausing to look upward, May searched for a speck of light coming from above. But there was nothing. um, she gazed down forward, again, unsurely, and then continued. Nearly an hour of descending May began to wonder if she had somehow taken the wrong stairs or come through the wrong lighthouse. Come through the wrong lighthouse. Though the abandoned hope sign seemed to be a pretty good indication that this was the place. The stairs seemed to plummet endlessly onward, so that even some that even so that even Kitty squirmed impatiently where May had tucked him under her shroud. Under her breath, May hummed. May hummed my favorite things, but that made her think of Pumpkin and his shocked expression when she left, so she stopped. Under her breath, May hummed. No. She began counting stairs and had already counted to 2007 until to count to 2007 when she slammed into a wall. May stuck her hands out in front of her and felt around. Besides the stairs that led up, she was surrounded only by walls. Panic rose up inside her. May pulled Sombrikitty out of her shroud and set him down, then felt blindly along the walls with her hands, looking for a latch, a knob. Looking for a latch or a knob, something, squinting in the dim light. Sniff, sniff. She crouched and felt for Kitty. He had his nose pressed up against one of the walls, smelling it, and May let her fingers travel along his snout to the place where he was sniffing. There was a tiny, uneven hole. May rubbed her finger against it, perplexed. Meow? Kitty whispered, equally perplexed. Hold on just 1 second. Readjusting myself. um, May rubbed her finger against it, perplexed. Meow? Kitty whispered, equally perplexed. May sank onto the stair behind her and crossed her arms, and then she remembered. The key. She dug into her left, then right pocket, and grasped a small, cool piece of metal. She pulled it out, feeling for the hole again. Cross your paws, Kitty, she whispered. She stuck it into the hole, a perfect fit. She gave a small twist, and the floor disappeared from underneath her. May landed with a splash flat on her back and came up sputtering. Ugh! She grunted, wiping the smelly slime off her face. She was in a trough of some sort, feeding a water wheel at one end of the stream. She only had a moment to feel extremely proud of having made it this far before she noticed a pair of slitted eyes glowing at her in the dark. Kitty perched expertly on the edge of the trough, completely dry and flapping his tail casually. May was about to stick out her tongue at him teasingly when a movement caught her eye, and she ducked back into the muck, pulling Kitty with her. She leaned forward on her elbows. A few specters stood at the far end of the trough, gathering up slime in buckets, and then a ghoul appeared from around the water wheel, gabbling at them. The ghouls urged the specters onward, in the opposite direction. Prison. The ghouls ushered the specters onward, in the opposite direction. Prisoners, May assumed, though none of them wore shackles. Every one of them had stooped shoulders, their eyes cast to the ground. When the group had passed, May and Kitty sat up again and slowly, climbed out of the trail. A cobblestone street stretched before them, lit lit with a dim purple light, and lined on one side by a wide, dismal field. Floating in the air, just as the field's nearest edge, floating in the air, just as the field's nearest edge, were glowing purple letters that read map. Just as she started toward it, a noise drew May's attention upward, and she shrank back into the shadows. Overhead, black gondolas. Overhead, black gondolas slid greasily along, suspended by nothing. Though most of them were empty, there was the occasional cart full of goblins or gulls jabbering along. Beyond them, there seemed to be no sky and ceiling either, just only a gray haze drifting far above. May waited for a break in the gondola traffic. Then she and Kitty zipped across the street. Hold on, I just remembered something. I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. I just remembered some dinner that I left out from my brother, and I was like, oh no, is he not gonna get it, or did I leave it out and he's not gonna eat any, and he doesn't realize there's food out? Anyways, okay. Okay. That's probably where I'm gonna leave off. Okay. I know where I'm gonna leave off, so. And you're gonna be like, what the fuck? What's happening? Why'd I take on my. Well, I guess I don't need them, but. No, I have to put on my glasses. Yep. Yep, I know. So I'm probably gonna run up a little bit, like at 10:40. Yeah, it's fine. Alright. Just as she started toward it, a noise drew May's attention upward, and she shrank back into the shadows. Overhead, black gondolas slid gracefully along, suspended by nothing. Most of them were empty, but there was the occasional cart full of zombies or ghouls jabbering along. Beyond them, there seemed to be no sky or no ceiling either, only a gray haze drifting above. May waited for a break in the gondola traffic, but then she and Kitty zipped across the street to look at the map. There was a three-dimensional spiral, showing a river moving along, showing a river moving down, 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 through the middle of the place, like a corkscrew. Tiny stars floated in the river's surface, marking areas labeled. Corkscrew River, ugh, Corkscrew River, Dead Sea Mill, Float in Phantasmagoria, Gull Village, Goblin's Grotto, Swamp of Swallowed Souls, Wild Haunt Manor, Zombie Pits, Reception Hall. The Corkscrew River, May whispered, pointing to the spiraling floating line she had noticed first. That's our way. It looks like we need to follow it to the bottom. As her pinky touched the map, a tiny, ghoulish face appeared. You are here. It looked like the river was just across the field. May scooped Kitty under her arm and darted in that direction, casting a look at the gondolas above, which were still empty. In a few moments, they arrived at the mouth of the river. A gangplank led to an area where several empty rafts had been corralled. A sign stood beside the gangplank. Welcome to South Place, dark spirit capital of the universe. Maybe you've always been evil, or maybe you became a dead egg. Maybe you became a dead egg. Maybe you've always been evil, or maybe you became a bad egg late in life. In any case, at some point you went rotten to the core, and that's why you've been directed to our realm, where you'll find yourself among like spirited spirits. Here in South Place, we have so much to offer you. We'll torment the living and so much more. Evil. It's just more fun. May blinked at the signs a few times. Then she turned to spot a poster like the kind one might find at a travel agency, hanging in the air nearby. I need to take another swig of water. Okay, there we go. She turned to spot a poster like the kind one might find at a travel agency, hanging in the air nearby. It showed two zombies and a goblin enjoying a game of Scrabble, with the headline, "If you're looking for your worst nightmares to come true, you've come to the right place." May and Somber Kitty looked at each other. "Meow?" he said. "I agree," May said, assuming he meant, "Let's get out of here." They climbed onto one of the empty rafts and pushed off. And that is the end of chapter 26. All right, here's where it gets interesting, man. Fuck. Okay. Chapter 27. A Luminous Boy. The Corkscrew River made a slow, greasy spiral downward. Occasionally, the water lapped up the sides of the raft, making May and Kitty huddle in the middle of it and stare uneasily as its many holes in the dingy, frayed ropes that held it together. When rafts full of dark spirits passed by, May and Kitty ducked. Some rafts held specters with daggers and thieves with masks like raccoon eyes and handkerchiefs tied around the lower parts of their face. Some held creatures even more hideous than the ones May had already seen in the Ever After. On either shore, they could see the sights of South Place. To the right, atop a crooked hill, perched a village full of small, jagged stone houses with windows like gaping eyes. A handful of prisoners clambered up and down the hill with buckets, fetching water from the river. Gulls stood in the streets, bartering, jabbering, drinking slippery sodas, and pushing around their captives. The raft drifted into oily black rapids and then crested a small waterfall. May crouched, pulling her shroud hood over her, and Kitty to block him from the spray. Several black skyscrapers sprung up on either side of the river, stabbing the misty, skyless sky. One misshapen monstrosity of a building straddled the river across its base, which arched over the water, were the words, "The Chamber for Dark Spirit Relations, convincing the realm we're up to no good," which of course we really are. As the raft drifted under the building, the voice came over a hidden loudspeaker in an echoey, drippy dark. Let me say that again. As the raft drifted under the building, a voice came over a hidden loudspeaker in an echoey, drippy dark. Dominating the afterlife is only one of the many hats we wear here in the dark realm under the sea. Just like other spirits, we haunt Earth. Here are a few of the services we perform on our distant, living cousin planet. Horrific hauntings, taking advantage of kind old ladies, inspiring terrible nightmares, internet pop-ups, general torment and misery. Internet pop-ups. They floated. You can tell this is a children's book. That's a pretty good one. It is. All right. They floated out from under the building and over another waterfall. Down, down, down they went. May felt the world above getting farther and farther away as they floated past dark villages, gaping caves with fearsome murmurings coming from inside, and decrepit bridges that snaked their way over the water, looking like they might collapse at any moment. On the fifth floor down, May and Summer Kitty floated past a black, bubbly, howling swamp. The crooked sign announced it to be the Cavern of the Swamp of Swallowed Souls. Shortly after came an enormous manor with black hedges pruned in the shape of gargoyles, arched windows shrouded in darkness, turrets spiking up from the roofs, and pillars guarding the great front doors. In the foreground was a large hedge maze and a great lawn. After that came a wide open space full of dark spirits, all sitting in the shadow of a craggy mountain. High up, an arching purple sign read, "Float in Phantasmagoria." Beneath the sign, a giant gull at least 20 feet high moved back and forth in the oohs and ahs of the spectators watching. May let out a squeal and ducked just as one of the gull's arms moved above the raft, then swept back to the land. She raised her eyes and peered over the side to see where it had gone, and then gasped. It was only a projection. As they floated on through, peering over the lip of the raft while lying on their bellies, May and Kitty watched the giant holovision movie being projected into the air. The film, which was silent and completely three-dimensional. Wait, hold on, sorry. I wasn't paying attention to what I was reading. As they floated on through, peering over the lip of the raft while lying on their bellies, May and Summer Kitty watched the giant hollow movie being projected into the air. The film, which was silent and completely three-dimensional, showed two goblins whistling and walking along the sea, looking pensive. Loud sniffles arose from the crowd. A song played in the background. It sounded a lot like Wind Beneath My Wings, one of May's mom's favorite songs. The, the raft rounded a corner. As it did, May's eyes fell back into the crowd, and she saw something that made her limbs go tingly. He was with the group of he was with a group of other captives, handing out Slurpee sodas to greedy, grabby goal hands. He looked he looked beaten and almost withered, his soul wispy looking and dimmer than it had been the last time she'd seen him. His back arched over his work, and his head hung down to his neck. Not a hint of mischief or youth in his posture, not a touch of light. He was no longer luminous, but he was Lucius. No mistake. At first, Ellen Bird thought she was imagining things. Up ahead, through an opening in the briars, she saw something she had never seen in all her years living in dry, droughty Bury Swamp. A lake. Slowly, carefully, she pushed the lash of the briars beside her feet. Her boots squelched as she stepped on the soft, muddy ground of the clearing and looked up at the dusky, cloudless sky. Suddenly, with a sound like a giant light switch being flicked, the lake lit up. Ellen, startled, took a step backward toward against Ellen, startled, took a step backward against the vines. Ouch! She pulled forward again and gazed about. Nothing around her changed except the lake was glowing like a television set. Bringing her hands together nervously, Ellen made her way slowly to the water's edge until her toes came right up to it. She leaned forward and peered in. And that is the end of chapter 27. All right. Hold on. I'm going to read. Yeah. This is not where I was going to leave off. I just wanted to see something. All right. But one more chapter. Chapter 28. Jesus, I read a lot. But I am proud because I need to get done with the series. School's gonna start up pretty soon, and I won't have time to read. Hell yeah, I'm doing great. I'm doing awesome. All right. Chapter 28. The Rescue of Lucius. The raft drifted into a cave lined by spindly walking paths to each other. May looked over its back end at the purple light of the opening they had just come through, smoothed her bangs to either side of her forehead, and looked at Kitty. And then she stuck her hands in the water and began to stroke furiously. Kitty looked at her like she had lost her mind. As soon as she'd gotten close enough to the wall of the cave, she reached out and tried to jam her hands into a crevice. The current was too strong. The current was too strong, though. By the time May finally managed to slow the boat, they were nearing the other side of the cave. May swept Kitty into her right arm and leaped onto the small dirt path. As she landed, As she landed, she remembered she should have somehow anchored the raft, but when she turned, it was already drifting away, quickly, carried by the current. May swallowed, and then she and Kitty made their way back toward the light. At the lip of the cave, the two paused and peered up along the bank of the river. No view of Lucius. May scrabbled up to the rise, Kitty reluctantly following right at her heels. They both ducked behind the rock. Up in the air ahead, the phantasmagoria flickered as the dark spirits in the audience jabbered, shushed one another, and sucked on their slurpy sodas. May scanned the crowd again for Lucius and caught a glimpse of him, drifting over the concession stand. May, May looked for May looked about for a way to get his attention. Before she could think of one, the last scene of the movie flickered to an end, and the ghouls began to move around, stretching their arms and blowing their noses. Let me just adjust myself again. As a couple of ghouls gestured and jabbered loudly, the prisoners started moving, Lucius among them, and May and Summer Kitty followed. The ghouls and their captors disappeared down a series of alleys, then into a cave. Slinking in the purple shadows, May and Kitty trailed them, looking like flies drifting into a yawning. looking like flies drifting into a yawning mouth. Through curving tunnels, they drifted on. May and Kitty shrinking into the nooks and crevices when ghouls turned to chatter at one another. Lucius did not turn around or even swivel his head to the side, and May began to doubt herself, wondering if it was really him. They got farther and farther away from the river, curving this way and that. Soon the group ahead came to an opening and everyone stopped. The ghouls shouted at their captives, directing them forward. May and Kitty waited until they'd all gone ahead, then crept into a niche to the left and, hidden, took in the incredible sight around them. They came to an enormous. They had come to an enormous cavern, lined on all sides with rocks, smelly black water dribbling down their jagged edges. The walls of the cavern rose so high that no ceiling was in sight, only a gray, filmy mist. Slimy, dark algae clung to the rocks and hung down into sloppy, wet strings. And here and there, nestled into the crannies of the rocks, were what looked to be 1,000 or more goblins. Some were sleeping, some were gathered in groups listening to music or watching holovision. Some were doing their nails or modeling clothes for one another. They smiled at each other with their impossibly long fangs, then occasionally tried to push each other off the rocks. One succeeded from time to time, its victim dashing against the rocks below and then slowly climbing back up again, laughing and pretending to think it was a good joke. Then it would reach the perpetrator and try to gnaw off one of its limbs. A gaggle of them was dangling from the ceiling doing circus tricks. Trash was strewn everywhere. Shopping bags, dirty socks, discarded clothing, old tiaras. The prisoners dispersed among the trash and began to pick it up, dropping it into heavy black sacks. May, her heart pounding, May kept her eyes on Lucius, whose back was still to her. He was picking up one of the old socks sluggishly, too defeated to be disgusted. He really let go of the sock and swiveled toward the next piece of trash. May looked at Somber Kitty, wondering what to do to get Lucius's attention. But Kitty saw what she wanted and acted quickly, backing his hind quarters up against the edge of the crevice that hid them and waving his tail at Lucius. Lucius turned his dull eyes toward the motion, curiosity crossing his face briefly. He looked at his captors, who had sat down in a game of Pinochle. No, I need to say this right. It'll drive me insane. And I know I've looked it up before, but I need to look it up now. Pinnacle. Oh, Pinnacle. Okay, yeah. I remember now. Sorry for that. Okay. Um, he looked at his captors, who had sat down to a game of Pinnacle. May and Kitty sank back into the crevice and waited with bated breath. Presently, an arm appeared in the open space, picking up a pink feather boa that was lying on the ground. And then Lucius's face appeared, peering in at them surreptitiously. Surreptitiously. Yes? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's. His eyes widened, and at the same time, a tiny hint of glow lit him up from the inside. There was no time to lose. May leaped forward and stretching as far as she could, grabbed him by the collar of his blue jacket, slapped a hand over his mouth, and pulled him backward. Lucius tried to let out a startled yell, but Summer Kitty leaped on his chest, with back with arch. Ugh, God, I can't talk now. Yeah. Lucius tried to let out a startled yell, but Kitty leaped on his chest, with back arched, and did the yell, and the yell died in his throat. Lucius lay there, flat on his back, his eyes moving to May's. For a moment, a big, mischievous smile started creeping on to his face, and then something else seemed to dawn on him, and his face went dark and stormy. "What are you doing?" he hissed. He swept Kitty aside and stood up, glaring at May. She held her fingers to her lips. "Saving you!" "Shh!" Lucius took this in, then shook his head furiously. No thanks. You've done enough already." Summer Kitty, who'd run to the head of the crevice. Summer Kitty, who'd run to the head of the crevice to keep watch, gave them both an annoyed look, and they both shut their mouths tight. Lucius backed up against the wall opposite May, looking alarmed and unsure whether to stay or flee. May stared at the opening until, eventually, she felt Lucius eyeing her. Her cheeks burned. "Something's different about you," he finally whispered. "I'm deader than before," May murmured, annoyed. She had never told Lucius she actually wasn't dead at all, and she wasn't about to now. Lucius considered this. Then she shrugged. "I really don't fancy being rescued by a girl, half dead or all dead, especially one who got me trapped in the underworld of eternal torment and misery." May rolled her eyes at him. He kept his profile to her. He had the same messy blonde hair, blue eyes, and flushed cheeks that May remembered. He was still taller than her, still older than her, but the smile was missing. May softened. What he'd said was true. "Especially one as inept as you," he added. May crossed her arms in front of her stomach. She didn't even know what the word inept meant. "I think you're the one who's inept." Kitty looked back over his shoulder and again scolded them with his glare. Sorry, she whispered to Kitty. Let me get some water. They stood a while, listening to the sounds of the goblins echoing around the cavern. Nobody was quiet. Nobody knowing quite what to do next. What are you doing with the cat anyway? Lucius finally asked. Somebody pulled his small death shroud closer to his teeth. Long story. May gave Lucius a hard look. Now, do you want to escape or not? Lucius looked surprisingly indifferent as he thought about it. Finally, he shrugged. All right, I'm in. All right, I'm in. We should stick something in their ears. We should stick something in their ears, he said. I have all sorts of things I've nicked. Ectoplasm syrup, specter spew, shampoo, soul shrinker. That'll never work, May said. She didn't know what those things were, but she knew it was crazy to try and confront all those goblins. They'd have to sneak out. It couldn't be that hard, since they'd snuck their way in. How do we go down from here? She asked. Lucius stuck his chin in the air. Why would we go down? May paused. I need to get something. From where? The bogey's bedroom? Lucius's faint glow flickered. His pretty blue eyes turned wide and scared, and then his eyebrows descended darkly. You must be joking. Somebody eyed him to let him know they couldn't be more serious. Lucius shook his head and began to go back away. No, definitely not. I won't go. But Lucius quickly drifted backward toward the mouth of the crevice. At the same time, Summerkitty let out a hiss and May swiveled to look behind her, a tiny yelp escaping. She was faced by a creature directly in front of her, floating at shin height. It was black and fluffy, with a pink bow in its hair. It stared at her and let out a tiny mew. Poor thing, May whispered, reaching out toward it. Where were all the cats coming from? This one looked a lot like the one they'd seen at Risk Falls. Behind her, Summerkitty growled. Mew? The cat asked sweetly, tilting its fluffy head, its pink bow leaning jauntily to the right. Here, little kitty. You what? What is that referring to? The cat? Or to she needs to get to the bogey's bedroom. Yep. That's definitely what he was thinking. You were still typing something. Unless you finished typing. Oh, okay, cool. Alright. Here, little kitty, May whispered. I won't hurt you. She expected the cat to either run away or flirt toward her shyly, but she did not expect what happened next. The small creature floated higher and higher into the air and began to puff puff out like a balloon. In another second, Somber Kitty leaped up between May and the black cat, his fuzz standing on end, his tail straight as a flagpole, his teeth bared. Kitty? Kitty? What? She reached for him, but as she did, something yanked her backward by their waist, and she let out a scream. Out of the corner of her eye, she could see Lucius, squirming and struggling in the strong, stubby arms of a goblin. Kitty! May's eyes shot to where Kitty! May's eyes shot to where Kitty had been floating just a moment before. But he and the cat with the pink bow were gone. Ellen Bird stood on the lake's edge, mesmerized by something she saw inexplicably far beneath the surface. It appeared to be a point of light floating up toward her. As it got closer, the light took the shape of a figure, and the figure got larger and larger, like it was coming from somewhere very deep down. It looked to be a woman, now that it was closer. A beautiful woman with hair swirling all around her. The woman flipped and twisted as gracefully as a water dancer. When the mysterious swimmer was only a few feet away, her eyes met Ellen's. She smiled, and all of Ellen's worries and fears and sadness of the past months seemed to melt away. The frown on Ellen's lips, that frown that had been there since the day May had gone, slipped off of her face. Ellen Bird sighed, feeling amazingly peaceful. The woman's smile seemed to say, I see you. I understand you. I know. And that is the end of chapter 28. And that is where we're going to stop there. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.